to the Art of Action Figures. On this episode, we'll be taking an in-depth look at the highly anticipated legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku from the Figuarts Dragon Ball line. To help frame this video, I've brought out 3 of my most highly anticipated Dragon Ball figures from the Figuarts line over the last couple of years. Starting at the far left, we have the Super Saiyan 4 Goku from GT, Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, also from GT, and Boy from the Future Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. I've been a really big fan of the 3.0 generation. I think everything is just really hitting its stride, from sculpting to deco to engineering, articulation upgrades in the shoulders, the hips. The sculpts are becoming really sharp, really refined, really nice full sculpting at the elbows, the knees. I think Bandai Tamashii does a really good job creating that anticipation based on just the way figures look and how they can be posed, and all of the accessories that it's going to include. The last question that remains is, what will the quality of the figure be like? How will it feel in hand? How easily do the parts swap out? How stable, how sturdy is the figure? How are the joint tensions? Are there paint errors? Things like that. Representing the not necessarily bad, but a little bit disappointing end of the spectrum, we have Boy from the Future Trunks. There's still a lot that I like about this figure, and personally, I think he's a great figure, but could have used a little bit longer in the oven. The left arm, while it doesn't just fall off, it is a little less tight on the bicep into the shoulder. The hips just shouldn't be doing that. They're not moving out of place. They hold a pose. They just wiggle. Next, somewhere in the middle, we have Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, another figure that just looked fantastic from all of the promotion photos and displays. His hips, nice and solid. Those thigh cuts, not the most elegant. This might be accurate, but I've always wondered, what is this diamond in the middle of his abdomen? And finally, we have the Super Saiyan 4 Goku, a figure for me that looked fantastic on display and is fantastic in hand. I love this form for Goku. I loved the way it looked in promos, and I love the way that it came out. It is my number 1 Figuarts Dragon Ball figure in my collection. It is my number 1 figure in any line that I collect. Just a masterpiece. Now, as soon as Goku, the legendary Super Saiyan, was announced earlier this year in 2023, he jumped straight to the top of my most anticipated Dragon Ball Figuarts releases, and that's for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I already mentioned, I've really been enjoying the aesthetic and engineering updates that have been coming with the 3.0 generation of Dragon Ball figures. Number 2, I think just from a branding perspective, it's hard to top the peak that was Goku's first Super Saiyan transformation on Namek. Personally, I'm most attached to Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT era Dragon Ball, and so I have a lot of fondness and expectations for this figure just based on its importance in sort of Goku's arc, especially in Z. But even putting that aside, regardless of how you feel about Dragon Ball Z, Goku's first Super Saiyan transformation, this battle with Frieza, the importance of this moment for the franchise is pretty undeniable. And so, at the very least, you can infer that Tamashii is bringing their A-game on this one. We saw what they did with the Super Saiyan Warrior Awakening Goku in 2015, as that sort of kicked off the 2.0 generation. So before we get into it, let's do a quick dance around the box. In particular, the first thing I want to point out is the size of this box. Relative to your standard retail Figuarts, this box comes in like almost an inch taller. And as far as like Figuarts Dragon Ball retail releases, which both of these are, they kind of come in two SKUs for the most part. You have your kind of base SKU, which in the US is $35. Usually these figures are reusing parts or existing molds, like this Vegeta was originally released several years ago, different color scheme, and so this is kind of an updated version of that with new face printing. And they'll come with like a good amount still of alternate hands and faces. And then with legendary Super Saiyan Goku, Boy from the Future Trunks, figures like that, I would call those more of their like deluxe SKU. I don't think they use that terminology, but these will come in closer to like $60 or $70. They're often using brand new molds, as was the case for both of those. Others include like Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta. They'll usually include a similar number of accessories, but like for Goku here, we've got alternate bangs, a completely separate alternate hairpiece, and a Kamehameha energy ball effect. All right, now going down the front, we have this image of the figure, and I mean, this is straight from the manga. There are frames in the anime which are kind of inspired by this, not exactly this angle and all of that, but putting an emphasis on accuracy to the source material. On the front, we have your ages 15 and up, warning, choking hazard, small parts not for children under 3. Designing this for 15 and up means it's not going to be in the swimming pool, taking a bath, things like that, so gives them a little bit more flexibility with the materials. They can put a little bit spikier hair, things like that. Bandai, Tamashii Nations, Dragon Ball Z, Toei Animation, holographic sticker here. One way to tell authenticity, the other is your Tamashii Nations quality seal here. And then we have designed by Tamashii Nations in Japan, Bandai Spirits made in Vietnam. And each of their standard boxes needs an accent color, usually taken from the figure. Not a bad choice. Goku's golden yellow hair seems to be the inspiration here. Let's go ahead and spin this around. This is the side that I display when I arrange my boxes, so always like to see nice, thoughtful images chosen here. We have the charging Kamehameha effect, charging Kamehameha posed Goku with the gritted teeth expression now and the default hair. And then we can just see his foot, and you know, normally the foot isn't the most exciting image on these boxes. For example, I think the eye gets naturally kind of drawn to the middle image here. They usually do something with a hand up here and something with a foot down here. Not the most exciting foot on Vegeta, although it does show that he has the wrong boots for first appearance Super Saiyan. But on this one, you can see some of that like really lovely sculpt detail on the torn pants, so that is still pretty cool. Oh, and of course we have the name of this figure, Super Saiyan Son Goku, legendary Super Saiyan. Now spinning around to the back, I really like to look at the sort of range of product images that they use here. They're normally taken from like the promotional images that you would see in a store listing. And so they do a good job highlighting the different accessories. Your neutral pose with the neutral face and the neutral hair. You've got the image from the front with the shouting face and the powered up hair. You have the what looks like gritting teeth face with the windswept bangs attachment on the default hair. Gritting teeth face again with default hair, Kamehameha blast. Smirking face with default hair, shouting face with default hair to show that it can be used on either hairpiece, which is pretty cool. And a couple of the alternate hands. Here you get the Kamehameha hands, the fist hands, open blast hand, martial arts pose hand, blasting Kamehameha hand. You got the shouting face actually used on all three hair combinations, so that's pretty cool. And then just showing off some of the range of motion of the figure with this high kick pose. Now spinning around to the other side, we just see the window is continued over here. Super Saiyans on Goku, legendary Super Saiyan, say that 5 more times. And finally, on the bottom, we have the gritting teeth face with the windswept bangs. Alright, if you're new around here, welcome. And if you're not, here we go again, opening the box. I've got my little hobby knife here. Usually go for the right hand side so I don't wrinkle the plastic window. I have already cut the tape, meaning I have already taken this out and had my hands on him for quite a while. Pretty hard to box him up for this review, in all honesty. But I will just stick the blade of my knife under the box. And look at that, the flap just readily pops out, nice and clean. Now let's slide him out. Still love this new style of packaging with no inserts to get in the way. Just a singular tray for this release. Not a bad thing at all. It is stacked full of accessories. We have a total of 4 alternate face parts. There is a serious neutral face, shouting face, gritting teeth, angry face, and a lovely little smirking face. 3 hair configurations. There is a sort of neutral default set of hair. There is alternate windswept bangs that can be swapped onto the default head. And then there is this sort of intense, powered up, extra spiky hair. We have a total of 6 pairs of hands, including the fists, open blast hands, open grabbing fingers clenched hands, open fingers slightly more clenched hands, your martial arts style pose hands, still need a name for those, and another set of open clenched finger hands, each of these with a peg coming out of the palm in order to port the Kamehameha ball effect onto the hand directly so that you don't have to worry about balancing it in his hands or anything. That's pretty cool. Speaking of, the Kamehameha ball comes in a couple of separate pieces here, starting with the ball itself down here between his feet, and 7 sort of beams of light that you plug into the ball to achieve the effect of the ball is emitting light. Lay Goku flat here and lift open the tray. Let's see, typically there's a little tab, yep, right here. So on either side you can just pull up from that tab, and I especially like to do this with figures that have this Kamehameha or energy ball with the light beams, because those in particular like to run away on you. They're just a fairly light, thin piece of plastic. And so if you are not careful when opening this, I mean, pretty much inevitably they will do something like that when you open them. So Always try to do this in a pretty secure location. Don't do it in your car. Don't do it on an airplane. Things like that. Okay. Usually a nice desk or table. That'll do nicely. And let's go ahead and lift Goku out of the package. And yeah, figure of the year, and it's not close. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you in the next one. Legendary Super Saiyan Goku out of his tray, looking phenomenal, and more importantly, feeling incredible. And I don't use that word lightly, but after the kind of bad taste in my mouth from Boy from the Future Trunks being a little bit less fun in hand than I had hoped, any concerns I had about this figure letting me down in a similar way just evaporated immediately as soon as I took him out, because the best, most impressive thing about this figure so far is very hard to convey over video, and that is the joints are just beautiful. They are some of the smoothest joints I have ever felt on an action figure, or almost anything for that matter, any mechanical object. And it's hard to describe. Just like buttery doesn't even do it justice. Just the way that they glide and move, everything moves exactly the way it's supposed to. Nothing squeaks, nothing protests, nothing is wiggly, unstable. Everything is just rock solid and perfectly smooth. And that is like something that I do not take for granted. It is very, very difficult to achieve that on a plastic figure. And so, like, not even getting into how incredibly expressive this figure looks, right away this figure has really impressed me with how well engineered he is. And when I say every joint, I mean every single joint. There is not a tight, squeaky, loose, wobbly thing anywhere on this guy. And honestly, it's pretty incredible. I know that it's not really something you can see, so that's why I am spending a little bit of time just appreciating that, because I think if you do get this figure in hand, you'll see what I mean. You'll feel what I mean. It is very, very rare. I'm struggling to think of another figure that is just this perfectly and precisely engineered. Super Saiyan 4 Goku was close, but even he has some joints that are a little bit tighter than they needed to be. Maybe a little bit squeaky in a few places, but overall really good. This is on another level completely, and I am so impressed. I mean, Earth's Strongest Man Krillin is up there as well, but even he's got a couple weird things. His kneecaps like to pop off. Now, I don't expect this to be the norm. I know some people do, but I think they're a little bit unrealistic in that expectation. One of the reasons I was anticipating this figure so much was just knowing that, like I said, Tamashii brought their A game. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk about swapping out some of these accessories. We'll start easy let's just exchange the serious looking face for the smirking face. The smirking face is labeled B, in case you are wondering. And I'm guessing the serious face here is going to be labeled A. To swap the face, it is very easy. You just pull the bangs, which are a separate piece. There's your faceplate A. Alternate face goes in very easily. And here we can see Goku with the little smirk. Now let's go ahead and exchange the smirking face for the gritting teeth face. And while we do that, let's go ahead and put on the alternate bangs, which can attach to this default hair. You get 2 sets of bangs. And that is a mean looking gritted teeth face. The bangs kind of obscure the face a little bit, but I think that's kind of the point of this one, and I think it is, like, again, straight off a page of the manga. We'll get to his articulation, but I'm very pleased and I'm very picky. And part of having such a thoughtful sculpt and thoughtful engineering as far as where the joints are placed and where they are cut, the figure almost poses itself, and that is kind of another intangible quality of action figures that's very hard to capture. But you know, some figures, sometimes, like, it takes a lot of effort to get them to look good, and this is one that takes just no effort whatsoever. You can do just about anything with them and it will look good. What is this pose? That's a nothing pose, but I mean, immediately I'm getting ideas that he's like doing some kind of cartwheel dodge, and that is like just next level expressiveness. So far, part swaps have also just been a breeze, which is another full marks engineering note. We're going to put the charging Kamehameha hands together. We'll give him the peg hand on the right, because I think it might hide it a little bit better. Okay, and for a good charging Kamehameha, you want that arm back and like get the other left hand going. I mean, just look at how effortless that butterfly joint just flies across his body. That is so nice. That is so good. Okay. So there are exactly 2 types of light beams. There are these shorter ones. There are 5 short ones and 2 long ones. The short ones all have the same peg, and the long ones have the same peg as each other. So the short ones all have this sort of like staircase thing. If you can get a good look at that. So the short peg's staircase. There's a staircase there. And so you can peg this into any of the staircase holes. They're all the same. The ball effect has some white paint on it, and you can see it's a sort of translucent blue. Alright, this time we'll go for one of the long pegs, and then I'll get the rest probably put in off camera. Okay, and now one of the long pegs, they have this sort of Oklahoma thing going. And so you find Oklahoma, there it is. And there's only 2 Oklahomas on this Kamehameha. That goes in pretty effortlessly as well. And then we'll pause, get the rest on, and then I'll show you how to attach it to the hand. Now, somebody out there who has the Orange Piccolo or Mastered Ultra Instinct Goku will have to tell me how this effect compares to those. But I do believe it is the same effect that comes with the Super Saiyan 4 Goku. That one obviously done in red, this one blue. But yeah, I'm not sure how it compares to the Kamehameha DLC that comes with Orange Piccolo or the effect that comes with the MUI Goku. So let me know if you've got those. We're just gonna find that circular hole on the ball and slot it over the peg coming out of the palm there. And there we go, just completely effortless and awesome. And some other nice features about this, since it is translucent, you can pipe light through it. Let's go ahead and swap the alternate head with the shouting face on. Also pretty effortless to do. This alternate hairpiece is a completely separate head. The bangs do separate, but they are not compatible with the default head. They have different placement of the pegs, so I guess you can try it, but they don't go in all the way, and I don't really know why you'd want to do that in the first place. Same is true the other way. You can't put, say, the default bangs on the extra spiky hair. That does look rather cool, but yeah, the pegs don't reach the holes. The difference between the head pieces, this is the default one, and this is the powered up one. You can see the spikes are a bit straighter over here, but that's about the only difference. They flare out a little bit more at the sides. Again, straighter and spikier from the back. Really like the hair color. There we go. So you can see how the hair pegs in there, and then we can put any of the faces on this head. But I think really your go-to is probably this shouting face. And again, this face and this hair is from like a very specific panel in the manga. I'll see if I can find it. It's also kind of similar to there's a frame in the anime that took inspiration from it. But I mean, this is just like not even beginning to tap into the full range of the butterfly joints, and it's so easy. And that is lovely. You got those palms right next to each other. So easy. And if I have one point of feedback on the accessories on this figure, if you wanted to get that very specific, you mean Krillin shouting face, I think that this alternate bangs going up would have worked pretty much just as well on this hair with just a little bit of reshaping. And then maybe instead of this back hair, they could have included a like swept to the side windy hair. I know they're doing a windswept hair with more releases lately, like the Innocent Challenger Goku, the new Gohan from the Cell Saga is going to have a windswept hair. Namek wasn't in the best of shape during Goku and Frieza's battle there, so there were an awful lot of scenes where Goku's hair is blowing around in the wind. So I think that would maybe have been a nice alternative to consider. Alright, let's run through Legendary Super Saiyan Goku's articulation now. So we'll do forward, backward, up, down hinges first, and then we'll do side to side movements. For forward, backward, I like to put the arms, I don't know what you call this pose, but gives me kind of a straight line across the torso, so you can get a sense for just how much movement there actually is. Now, he has 3 ball joints in the neck and head, so one at the base of the neck into the torso. That's a change from the 3.0 Gohan, which used a hinge. It's back to the 2.0 style ball peg on this one, which I think is a good move, and I'll explain why in a bit. Then a dumbbell joint between the head and the neck. All of that combined, he can look up a decent amount, not as much as I'd like still, but a little bit better than Gohan, I think. And I mean, his eye line gets him to about 45 degrees off the axis there. And then looking down, about 45 down, maybe a little bit more. Combined with the torso joints, he has a ball joint at the base and then a ball joint in the mid-torso. All of that together, he can look down at the floor pretty well. And then going back, almost straight up, and that's good for flying forward. With the hips, you can get him looking straight ahead while he flies. And then his elbow is a double hinge, so it bends like 135 degrees. 90 plus another 45 almost. So that's really good. Decent looking elbow joint, pretty filled out. Vertical wrist hinge. And then horizontal hinge. Okay, the hips are really impressive. So, kicking forward gets full 90 degrees, no problems. Maybe a little bit more. And that waist piece is a little bit soft, so yeah, you can push it a little bit further than 90 degrees, so that's great. The knees, let's see if they're about the same range. They do have some different sculpting in the base of the pants, but they do get about the same range going back. So, again, about 135 degrees, 90 plus another 45. Now, finally, at the bottom of the legs, we've got his ankle joints, and they've actually made a really, really nice update here. If you saw my review for the Demoniacal Fit 3.0 Goku, his ankles are quite limited on up and down hinge movement. And I made a comment that I wish they would use ball peg going up into the boot from this ball hinge, sort of like they do on the Naruto figures, because they get really, really good range out of that because it allows the hinge to move forward or backwards there. So with the legendary Super Saiyan Goku here, we have the sort of Naruto style, which is that same type of ball hinge, but it goes up into the boot on a ball. And what that means is if you just tried to use the hinge, you'd get about the same range as the Demoniacal Fit or the Figuarts 3.0 Gohan. But if you take advantage of that ball joint in there, you can actually get it almost straight down. And that's pretty much what I'm looking for, because that's kind of another key ingredient for a good flight pose. You can see how that ball lets me move the hinge around inside the cuff of the boot. And so if I want to get the ankle to go up, I need the most room on this side of the hinge, and so I want to push the ball back as much as I can and then up like that. And it's not the most range going up just because of the sculpt. It runs into it, but then that's where the toe joint comes in and gets you the rest of the way up. And so I think this is a pretty good ankle. If they would be able to point down a little bit, that would help kind of create the effect that his foot is all the way pointed. Another idea, alternate feet. Okay, let's go ahead and run through side-to-side movements now. Side-to-side movement is also quite good for this. Let's get him in a T-pose, but just to show you, even just with the hinge and butterfly joint, I mean, he can get his arms way up into like a V pose, so that's pretty cool. But let's get them just out in a T. And I was talking about the neck joint into the torso being a ball, whereas Demoniacal Fit and the Ultimate Gohan have just a hinge, and so their neck can only move like this. It cannot move like this. So all of your tilt is coming from only the head joint, basically. There's no tilting in the neck. The 2.0 style figures, and now on Legendary Super Saiyan Goku, use a ball joint at the base, and so it actually gives you a little bit more natural looking tilt. It doesn't really increase the range, but it just lets the neck tilt slightly off its axis there to kind of make that articulation a little bit smoother looking. Like I said, not really a big difference in range. The torso joints moving side to side combine for about that much range, which is really, really good. And they look quite good doing it. Like the way that this cut just kind of lines up with the belt here. That's really, really nice. Okay. Hip joints are quite good. They're similar to the 3.0 style hips. The thigh cut is actually the difference here, where the swivel is placed. And it does create a little bit of a difference when you're trying to raise the legs to the side, because the cut can run into the waist piece there if you're not careful, so you do have to kind of slide it under there. And as long as you do that, he gets full range out to the side very nicely. Call that the H pose. Also, the torso swivels at both ball joints very nicely, so you can very easily get them leaning to the side like that. The thigh swivels are another change. It works. The actual joint connection is pretty much at the same place as the Demoniacal Fit and the Ultimate Gohan, but the sculpt of the thigh part of the pants goes up a little bit higher, and it just hides the seam, so you can't really see it. And same true for most angles, and actually, like from the front, if you're looking right on, the belt can help hide it. And I think what they're going towards is ultimately almost like the 1.0 style thigh swivel, where most of it comes at the top of the leg, so you don't have a cut in the thigh. And the reason it works is because they've also got the butt sculpt back here on the back of the waist joint, which does mean kicking back is a little bit inhibited, and the waist piece is a little bit softer than Demoniacal Fit and Ultimate Gohan, so it does flex, but I don't really want to push it because it will probably warp the piece over time. But you can pretty easily get the leg going. You can easily get him in a front-back split going a little bit to the side and just turning the waist. So that works perfectly fine for me. And you can see that waist does flex out of the way there a little bit, but yeah, I wouldn't keep it in that pose because I imagine when you move it back to neutral, it's going to be a little bit warped if it stays there too long. But anyhow, because you have the butt plate sculpted back here, they don't need to put the thigh sculpt on the leg, and so that means your thigh swivel can cover like 90 degrees of range pretty much invisibly. So that's really nice. And it swivels in just a little bit. So it's mostly for 90 degrees swivel to point the feet to the side. And then finally, your ankle rocker works really well. Past 45 degrees there. And if you put his feet flat on the floor, the widest stance he can have is quite wide. With the feet flat on the floor. So that's really good. Really good ankle pivot. And then of course the feet can swivel on there as well. Let's see. Bicep swivel's a bicep swivel, not too extraordinary. And finally, a couple specialty joints. You've probably seen me move this belt around. I wouldn't push it totally upside down. I did that once and it popped out, and it was a little bit hard to pop it back in because this is a soft piece where the shirt is torn. And then last but not least, we have these really phenomenal shoulder joints. These are still what I would call the 3.0 style shoulder joint, but with no sleeves in the way, and just the smoothness of the connections. Definitely the best implementation I've seen from Figuarts. They go, so to give you the full rundown, they can go all the way around like this, and so going across the body, he can more than cross his wrists. Which is quite good. And even down like beside the chest, it's still really good. Going behind his back, you can get the full range, and it does get a little bit of a gap there, but I'd rather have that gap than limited range. And works really well. And then going up, not a problem. And if you get the head out of the way, you can see just how much beyond A pose this can get, which is really cool. That's not something every figure can do. In fact, this is something most figures cannot do. So, love to see stuff like that. I know even though his head gets in the way, like, imagine a figure with smaller hair, and you get the idea. And at least, like, when you do have the head attached, like, at least he can very easily do things like that. So that's really cool. Yeah, just really a phenomenal joint at those shoulders. Now if we take the Demoniacal Fit Martialist Forever Goku, and other figures like Figuarts Ultimate Gohan Superhero as the baseline for the 3.0 generation, what does that make Legendary Super Saiyan Goku? Is he still a 3.0? There's some differences, like the shape of the thigh cut, the type of joint they used on the ankles, and some of the other cuts around the shoulders and the torso, and the mid-torso. So does that make him a 4.0 or something in between? Some argue that anything in between is kind of meaningless, and I agree to an extent. Like, I'm not going to call this a 3.14159 Goku or anything like that. I do like to use like half-step increments though, because I think it just helps to differentiate between a huge kind of rebuild upgrade of a figure, like comparing 2.0 to 3.0 Goku is a very distinct rebuild, whereas calling this a 3.5 means he's still in the 3.0 generation, which I characterize by the Mafex style shoulder joints and the 2.0 style hip joints, with the butt sculpt on the waist and no more 2.0 hip caps. And so, to me, I think this Goku is a 3.5 figure. I would put Trunks Boy from the Future in that same class, and Metal Cooler, Orange Piccolo, maybe even Beast Gohan to some extent because of the overlay shirt. Now, all of those figures are kind of different setups, and so 3.5 is not so homogenized. To me, it just means that it's a tweaked version of 3.0, and mainly here the tweaks are just more refinement and motion in the cuts and movement in the shoulders. The shape of his mid-torso cut follows the muscle anatomy so that it doesn't cut straight through his abdomen. And that looks really good. And the tops of the thighs come up a bit higher, and some people don't really like the way it looks, but I think it looks a little bit better than the original 3.0 cut. The idea with these is to try to hide this thigh cut by making it look like a similar shape to these folds, and so it can kind of trick the eye into just seeing another fold here, but it is a little bit too distinct still for that effect to work. They would either need to cut much sharper folds into the sculpt, or just like really soften that edge, and I don't really know how doable that is. And so instead what they've done on what I'm calling like the 3.5 style hips is continued the sculpt of the thigh all the way up to the waist for the most part, and then just let the swivel action be kind of focused on that type of movement, because that's kind of what you would need from a thigh swivel. And that allows you to do still things like sit with his legs crossed and stuff like that. Any specific decimal after the 3 is kind of meaningless, other than just to me signifying that it's an update over 3.0, but not quite a completely new articulation build. Figures like Proud Namekian Piccolo, Super Buu, even like Ginyu and Second Form Frieza, I would consider those figures 2.5 figures, because they're 2.0 style with the hip caps and the forward hinge butterfly joints, but they're kind of like maximized versions of that 2.0 setup. So 3.5 Goku, that's how he sits in my book. let me know what you think. Let's go ahead and try swapping their heads. I've done this already once, and the pegs are not exactly the same. So this peg is a little bit bigger than the demoniacal fit. I really wish that demoniacal fit had matched their neck peg to like Ultimate Gohan, because I think that's what this is basically. But what it means is the base form Goku head doesn't quite sit all the way down, but you know, you can, this looks a little bit silly, but there definitely are some shots in both anime and manga where Goku is fighting Frieza. I think right after he's like, it's done, and then flies away, powers down after his fight with Frieza, and he's still like really buff and bulky like this. So I don't know, I think it looks a little weird, but it could work. And what it can really work for is Kaioken. And then going the other way, because this peg is a little small, it means this head fits on there, and it does actually snap a little bit. So you do get a little bit of tension in it, but it is a little bit too loose. And that's pretty unfortunate because it does look quite good. I think this is like perfect for title card Goku. You know, when he, I don't know, does he like fly into the middle of the Z Warriors and turn Super Saiyan as the title song ends? This works pretty well for that look. This is like really good early Android Saga Super Saiyan Goku. Even Cell Saga, I think you could make this work for Cell Saga Goku. I don't know if I've seen anybody try this one with the alternate bangs, but I saw someone say this kind of looks like Super Saiyan 2 hair. And could be. You know, now that I swapped this head onto the other body, I'm not so sure that the neck peg is short on the Super Saiyan Goku. I think it's more so that the socket sits a little bit too high in the head, because even on this demoniacal fit body, the head sinks down pretty low onto the neck. I think it'd probably look best if it was just kind of resting at that height. So yeah, for Super Saiyan 2 Goku, Buu Saga, that looks pretty good. The face skin tone doesn't match 100%, but it's pretty close. It is a little bit darker on the legendary Super Saiyan. Yeah, this is like your Kaioken times 4 Goku over here. Okay, enough of that. Two more little nitpicks on the figure after we've gone over the articulation. You can see little cuts at the top and bottom of the kneecap there. Could be a little bit less obvious. And then the belt and torn shirt does tend to kind of separate from the waist. And you can kind of start to see underneath it there and into the articulation. I think the range of motion is more than worth it, but just a couple of little things I noticed posing him around. But yeah, like, I think those are so minor, it's like almost not worth pointing out. I mean, I guess now's as good of time as any to talk about the sculpt work that is really, really good. You could see just the muscles on his back. It's really, really a cohesive, like, anatomical sculpt. It's probably not 100% human anatomy, but you know, Goku is an alien after all. But you can see how the lines on the back, the spine, the shoulder blades all kind of situate themselves with respect to the lines where the joints are cut. So you can see how the shoulder kind of just follows that line there. Really nice elbows. They don't have that similar problem to the knees, where you can see those little cuts out of the top and bottom. Not sure what that's all about, but got the triceps, some big old biceps and shoulders. Really nice integrated shoulder hinge there. Similarly, around the front, the cuts follow the muscle anatomy again around the front so that it doesn't cut straight through the abdomen. It goes up and around and kind of traces the line of his rib cage instead. And it gives it just a kind of more fluid, organic shape than something like this, which is fine when the character is wearing a shirt and you can just kind of let your eye dissolve this line into the folds of the fabric. Really, really beautifully sculpted pants. They're reminiscent of the Awakening Warrior Goku, but again, another level beyond that. Nice little scuffs and scratches from battle damage. And then, yeah, just really dramatic, torn up looking pants. The knees, little off looking from the back. I'm not sure they need to be quite so. Really nice shape to the calf that you can see on that leg. And yeah, these spikes, they're soft, but I wouldn't want to poke myself with them. The hair is actually pretty hard with these spikes, so be careful not to poke with that. The blue and orange pieces of his torn shirt are separate, and so there is just no like paint interruption between the two. It is complete separation as you want it, so that's good. And here's the comparison that I know everybody's been waiting for. On the left, we have a little bit of a throwback to the mid-90s with the Super Battle Collection. I forget which number figure this is, but obviously we've come a long way in 30 years, and pretty incredible to see both of these in one lifetime. The incredible 2 points of articulation. Yep, 2. No waist swivel. The gremlin Goku face, of course. For its time, served its purpose, I guess, which was let your imagination do the rest. And now, no imagination required if you're 15 or older, of course. So, quite an achievement for Bandai, single company, behind both of these figures. I've got quite a few more of these Super Battle Collection figures and some of the old Irwin stuff lying around, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in seeing more of. But yeah, like I said, what a difference 30 years makes. And even if we wind the clocks all the way forward to 2015's Super Saiyan Warrior Awakening Goku, you can still see quite a difference in the 8 years since then. The shading on the skin tone is maybe the toughest loss, but I still think the sculpting is just so good on the new Goku, just in terms of the sharpness in the planes, the sculpting and molding of the plastics on Legendary Super Saiyan here more than make up for it. In fact, I think I prefer this look overall. It's cleaner. It lets the light do the work instead of kind of setting the figure up for a particular light source. And I think in a lot of cases, paint and shading and wash type paint applications can almost be used like a crutch for sculpting, and you can definitely see quite a bit more detail in Legendary Super Saiyan. Just look at how much more shadow you get under his ribs there, even with the shading on Awakening Warrior. Same at the triceps. And I bet if I turn the shoulders, yeah, I mean, look at that. Can you tell that there's no shading here versus here? A little bit. I mean, just look at the difference in the detail on his back. Now, one thing that they did have like really good, and I think was the thing that held up the best on Warrior Awakening, is the torn clothes. The main things that detract from this figure nowadays and make it look a little bit dated are the faces. I think the gritting teeth is the one that's held up the best, so that's why I keep it on him. He does have those unusual gold eyebrows. And then the other thing that is a little questionable is like the amount of orange shading in the hair. Just never personally liked orange shading on yellow hair. I think if anything it should have been like more brown. And I think the sculpts are just so sharp and well defined now that they don't need it. In fact, this Goku, he has maybe a tiny amount of like very faint shading in some of the crevices of his bangs there. And around the rim of the hair, but it is nowhere near as aggressive as this one. But even to this day, the Warrior Awakening Goku remains one of the standout figures in the Dragon Ball Figuarts line. Even the new version that just came out this year for the 15th anniversary World Tour still looks really good. I think it actually comes out really nice and pairs really nicely with this legendary Super Saiyan Goku. Didn't really have an opportunity to get it myself, but it's definitely worth backtracking for if you've had the opportunity or do get the opportunity. So we've come a very long way from the Super Battle Collection Goku. But one feature that Tamashii has yet to attempt is the old removable gi. So instead, what we've got is a nice range of alternate bodies with kind of a full range of sculpted battle damage, and I think this ends up being a bit more satisfying because you get things like the torn pants and the half-torn shirts, and I don't think that would work so well with swappable shirts. Definitely don't want to see them go the way of like all cloth clothes. I like action figures to be mostly plastic and cloth only where things need to pose like cloth, like capes and cloaks and flowy things. But yeah, between a couple of third-party figures on the left here, some real bangers from Figuarts on the right, we have pretty much the full range of Goku's battle damage. I think the only one that we're missing is Barefoot final battle with Raditz or Tenkaichi Budokai. I think that one will probably come at some point. And another figure that is a bit older, but still holding up pretty well is the fourth form Frieza. This is the second release of that figure. I think there have been 3 total, and pairs really well with Goku. I do think that a buffed out full power Frieza is inevitable at this point. Fourth form Frieza is one of the best older figures. It still holds up quite well. There we go. Yeah, so fourth form Frieza. But yeah, still a very good looking figure in my opinion. And here's Goku with the final form Cooler, another top figure in the Figuarts line for me, and a pairing that actually works quite well since Goku takes this Super Saiyan with no shirt form in both Cooler movies, in fact. I do have the Metal Cooler arriving soon. I'm on the fence whether I'm going to try to shoot a video for that one, since he looks to be quite shiny and tricky to capture photographically. But let me know if you would like to see that, and I can try to work it out. Other upcoming videos, it's getting close to the end of 2023, so I've got some ideas for kind of end of the year wrap-up awards. I don't think I'll do a top 10 because honestly I don't know if I got 10 figures this year that I want to put on a top 10 list at least, and like all came out during 2023. Instead of that, what I'm thinking about doing is like more categorical awards across a range of lines that I follow, which will probably include like Dragon Ball, of course, maybe some other anime, Star Wars, and maybe Marvel. I think I will still do like a Figure of the Year award. That will certainly be kind of the last award given out in the show. But other ones I'm thinking like awards, almost kind of like for movies, where Figure might not win Best Picture, but it might win Best Costumes or something like that. So yeah, I think it'll be give me a little bit of a chance to review the year with a little bit more variety. That'll be coming soon. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.